Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be ranking every Spirit Halloween year. Now, this list will be very interesting. I'm only going to be doing the years 2008 through 2022, because 2008, in my opinion, is when Spirit first really started to do themes. They had like the castle entrance and like the fright zone 2007, but I feel like 2008 would just be a nice place to start, since 2008 to 2022 is like 15 years anyways, so it kind of rounds up to be perfect nonetheless. Alright, and also just some rules for this list. We're not going to be including online onlys in this, and this is all my personal opinion. Now, I'm going to be ranking these years by basically what the theme is, how well the props actually go into that theme, and actually the animatronics and stuff that year. So for every year, I'm going to be saying the best and the worst animatronic, and some other really good props and some other kind of bad ones. So at our number 15 spot, we got the year 2020. Now, this year was not the best, I'm not gonna lie. Most of the props were either pretty good, but I feel like most of them just kind of fell flat. We got some really good ones like Harvester Souls, Miss Mercy. I think the Butcher and the Huntress were really well done too. Uncle Charlie came back, but I feel like he just didn't come back right. They tried to make like Uncle Charlie look like more modern, and I feel like if they like just brought him back like his original state was in 2010, obviously improve his quality, then I feel like this year definitely would not be last. But I don't know, I just feel like this year wasn't that good, at least for in store. And obviously, just for the worst prop, I mean, this isn't even a contest. It's obviously Johnny Punk. That prop is so bad. And the fact that that was in stores and other really good online onlys, like Flesh Eating Zombie was a really good job at what Flashback Fridays could be, and he was online, so we're not counting that. Instead, we got like Johnny Punk in stores. We got like Angelina and Mommy's Favorite. I just feel like the props really didn't go into the theme at all, if I'm being honest. The theme itself was okay. I know a lot of people like it. I myself wasn't the biggest fan. It wasn't really scary. It was just an island. The cave theme was alright, but even then it was just way too small. But honestly, it all makes sense because of the pandemic and everything was that year, so I gotta, cut the year some slack. But the whole theme was an island, like tiki stuff in like a cave theme, but we didn't even get any like props that even related to that theme. If Lord de Conovar was actually in the cave, it would have worked really well. And if we got, I don't know, just some like prop relating to the Reaper's Island, even just like Reaper prop, because there was skulls, and we didn't get like really any Reaper props inside the island. Even that would have fit. Instead, we got clowns, and I guess Scarecrow kind of fits, but even then, not really. We got like clowns and like Pennywise and Sam on an island. It just really doesn't make sense. Honestly, I guess the Butcher kind of fits because he's like a pig, but that's it. But yeah, I feel like the best part of the lineup was the best prop that year was definitely Harvester Souls, hands down. He carried that whole year. If Harvester Souls was not in that year, this year would have been so bad. I'm not gonna lie. Other super good props, as I mentioned, the Huntress was really good. Miss Mercy and the Butcher I thought were also really good. But even then, the Butcher definitely needed some blood on his apron. I know a lot of people like Nightcrawler. I thought he was okay. And by the way, I'm not counting returning props into that year, so I'm not counting Crouchy in the year 2020 since he originated in 2019. So that's just another rule I'll go over. But overall, 2020, I think, is probably the worst year for Spirit. There wasn't really a walkthrough that year, but as I said, it all makes sense because of the pandemic, so it makes sense why it wasn't as good as the other years. Coming into the number 14 spot, some of you guys might greatly disagree with this, but I'm gonna go with 2018. I just thought this year was very okay. We didn't really get a lot of good props. It was like a farm theme and stuff, and I thought it was a pretty good theme, but like, you know, it wasn't anything crazy. It was just like another farm. I think the farm we got in 2012 was a bit better just because we got better props there. But once again, why are there clowns on a farm? It doesn't really make sense. But I feel like just some credit to 2018. I feel like most of the props fit in pretty well, you know. We got a lot of scarecrows that year, which was cool. We got like the looming strawman, nightmare harvester, pumpkin patch prowler. So most of them did fit in pretty well, but there were a few odd ones out. But honestly, for modern years, it really wasn't the prop blending into the themes was pretty good. So probably for the worst props, in my opinion, if you watch my top 5 worst animatronics, you already know. This might be a bit unfair to count it, but I'm giving it to the ghost tricycle. That thing was so bad. You already know how much I hate the like ghost props where they just, you know, they just get a random object and they just put nothing on it and they call it like ghost swing, ghost tricycle. So, but if you don't really want to count that, probably some other ones. I wasn't the biggest fan of Double Trouble. I just thought, you know, they didn't look that good. Sitting Scarecon was also kind of okay in my opinion. However, some better ones, I think Hugs was done pretty well. I know a lot of people like him. He's not my personal favorite, but I think Looming Strawman was also pretty cool. I just liked his appearance. His animation was pretty cool. But probably for the best one this year, I mean, I literally named my old channel after him. I gotta go with Pumpkin Patch Prowler. Even then, he's not like my favorite prop in the world, but I think he was definitely the best out of this year. I just think he was done very well. I just like his whole pumpkin aesthetic and all of his clothes and just everything in general. And that was 2018. A very just okay year in my opinion. Nothing really like stood out to me too much. There wasn't really like too much horrible props this year too. Everything was just kind of average this year, I felt. So I think I can safely give 2018 the number 14 spot. Alright, so coming into number 13 is 2019. Now, honestly, I'm going to be honest, the props this year really weren't that bad. I think the props this year were pretty solid. We got some really good ones like Demonic Dahlia. I think Bloodthirsty Betty was done really well. Also Pennywise and Sam. I think almost all the props were done pretty well, except for the theme. This is probably the worst prop blending into a theme I have ever seen. It's very bad. And it kind of sucks too because the themes themselves are really good. But the thing that really holds back this year is just how literally none of the props go into the theme. Like clowns and Pennywise on a boat just makes zero sense. Like, why are there scarecrows on a boat? I literally can't see like any of these props fitting. Maybe besides like Experimental Eddie, maybe like Abandoned Annie. I just feel like none of these props fit at all. But to some credit to this year, I think the walkthrough is probably one of the best walkthroughs we had. I think 2022 might be a bit better, but we'll get to that a bit later. But I think the whole aquarium walkthrough was very cool. And the whole just water aesthetic was super good, but just none of the props fit. It just kind of sucked that we didn't get like a pirate prop or something, or just some aquatic creature, just something that fit. Even if it was just one prop, I feel like it just really would have made up for the theme. I don't know why they made an aquatic theme without any aquatic animatronics. this was kind of the first year where they just, I feel like, gave up on themes, which kind of sucks. Not in like the themes themselves, but the props that actually go into it. Like I said, I feel like this year is when they actually stepped up their game on the themes, but they just didn't care about prop placement or, how the props blend into the theme, which kind of sucks. Anyways, on to the actual props. I think the best prop of this year was, in my opinion, Demonic Dahlia. Demonic Dahlia was just so good. She brought a whole new mech. She was probably the creepiest prop that year. An overall very good jump scare. Other ones that came really close, I probably would say like Waving Wally. I feel like he's the first creepy clown we've got in a long time. I thought Pennywise was also just very well detailed, and Bloodthirsty Betty was also pretty solid. But probably for the worst, I'm going to give it to Graveyard Ghoul, which kind of sucks because he kind of gave me like 2012 vibes. I really want to like him, but he's just not that good. His mech constantly breaks, his hair gets stuck in the mech, and overall, the whole illusion of his head like peeking behind the tombstone and going to the other side really just does not work. It just looks weird how there's just a floating head on one side. You can clearly see the mech. I feel like the illusion just does not work, so they just kind of failed there. Other pretty bad props. I thought Mr. Toots was alright. He wasn't really anything crazy. Abandoned Annie was also okay. She was just way too overpriced. Torture Torso also had a lot of potential, but there's just no blood on him, so he also was not anything amazing. So, in my opinion, 2019 is probably the 13th best year in Spirits history from 2008 to 2022. So on to number 12, we have the most recent year, 2022. Now, some of you might be expected why 2022 is so low on this list, and others might be wondering why it's so high on this list. In my opinion, I think 2022 is slightly overhated. It wasn't as bad of a year as people made it out to be. I feel like most of the props this year, it's kind of like a 2020 situation, where most of the props this year were either pretty solid or most of them were pretty bad. But unlike 2020, in my personal opinion, 2022 was one of the best themes ever. Honestly, the theme totally saved this year. I'd probably put this dead last or 14th place if the themes weren't as good as they were. But once again, the problem with the themes this year is that none of the props really blend in that well, besides maybe nozzles and a few others. Most of the props really just do not blend in. I think the back theme, the props looked a bit better in there, but the front theme, why are clowns in a lab? It just doesn't make sense. But I thought Monty's side theme was very well executed. I kind of like how they're bringing back, how they kind of have three themes ever since starting in 2021, even if it's just a tiny mini theme. It's just kind of, good nostalgia for the OGs here. But overall, I think this year was just very interesting. As I said, the themes were amazing. Probably the worst props. Most of you probably expect this. In my opinion, the worst prop was Young Crouchy. Such a lazy idea and pretty bad execution. But another bad prop that comes very, very close is Tombstone Tear. That was absolutely horrible. That looks like a Lowe's prop in 2022 in 2022, because Lowe's now is really good. If you've seen some of the 2023 leaks, but anyways, I feel like Tombstone Tear just reminded me of a not spirit prop. It just wasn't up to spirit quality. In Young Crouchy, it was just such a lazy and horrible idea. And, the thing that was best about Crouchy was how big he was. And they gave him, light up eyes. He's too small. He's too, cutesy now. It just doesn't look good. But for the best props, so for some runner-ups, I'd probably give it to the Widow and Strawman. I feel like Strawman is probably, in my opinion, probably one of the best scarecrows we've ever gotten, and one of the best servo props we've also gotten. The Widow is just a super creepy prop, probably one of the creepiest props we've gotten in modern Spirit. But in my opinion, the best props gotta go to Monty. I just love his just animation, his just appearance, how big he is. I love everything about him. I'm slightly biased just because I love Monty. So, but as I said, 2022 is just a very strange year. Like other props, like Bag of Bones wasn't very good. Little Skelly Bones, I didn't really care for him either. It was just a very interesting year, to say the least. All right, so moving on to our next spot, number 11 is 2016. Once again, I really don't care for this year. I feel like most of the props this year weren't bad per se, but they're just kind of forgettable. Honestly, I forgot almost every single prop this year besides Boogeyman, Morning Glory, and Lunging Pumpkin Carver. I really don't remember too much else from this year. But I feel like the themes this year were interesting. I think I don't know, I feel like the hotel had a lot of potential, but just ended up not looking amazing. They're just kind of random props placed in it. And I feel like the prop placement was just kind of weird. There's this front stage, and there's that Rising Reaper, and all the roaming props, and just look really cluttered. There's 4 roaming props just all in a tiny space, and then there's Morning Glory on the other side. It just looked way too cluttered. And then I feel like all the props in the elevators were cool ideas, and how you activated them. But once again, the props really didn't fit in too well with that. And as for the front theme, it was just kind of forgettable. There's really nothing insane about it. I mean, it was tall, but that's it. It couldn't even get to its max height if most of the stores had low ceilings, which a lot of the stores do. So I feel like most of its potential is just kind of wasted there. But onto the props this year, I feel like some of the worst props, in my opinion, right away, I feel like some of the roaming props this year were really bad. That roaming teddy bear, such wasted potential. Its phrases are so stupid. But I feel like, in my personal opinion, the worst prop is probably the animated evil clown. I mean, I barely remember this thing, but this does not look like a spirit prop. I don't know what this is, but this looks like something sold at CVS, and this looks absolutely horrible. I don't know who thought this was a good idea to sell, but I don't know why some people like this. In my opinion, this is literally up there as one of the worst props. I hate this thing so much. But onto a more positive side, probably some of the best ones. I thought Morning Glory was cool, but, if you had to be a certain height to actually see her properly. Some other cool ones, well, I won't count Cerberus since he returned that year. Lunging Pumpkin Carver I thought was pretty cool, even though Lunging Lily was better. Electrified Corpse is super solid too. He's honestly one of the creepiest props just because how loud he is and all the blood on him. So I think I'll give Electrified Corpse probably the second best this year. But in my solid opinion, probably the best one this year is probably going to be the Boogeyman. I just love his suit and his tie and his motion. I love his face sculpt. Everything about him is just super cool. And overall, he's definitely a very solid prop. So I think I can safely give 2016 the 11th spot. It's just kind of forgettable. I just really don't remember too much from this year. That's just how forgettable it was. But Boogeyman and Electrified Corpse are definitely some very good spotlights. So on to the number 10 spot, I'm gonna give it to 2017. If you notice, so far it's all like kind of modern years of Spirit. Personally, I prefer the older years, but some of the modern years are still pretty good. 2017 was once again a very interesting year. The back theme was amazing. I love the whole Area 31 thing. I love like all the lighting and how like all the aliens actually fit into the theme. The front theme was admittedly kind of forgettable. It was kind of like a forest and there's like a bridge you could walk through. But I feel like the back theme was bigger than the front theme, which is kind of weird. Like, if this was an older year Spirit, this 100% would have been like a middle theme. It just really did not feel like a good front theme. It was just way too small and kind of forgettable. But onto the actual props this year. For the worst one, I think you might have an idea. I'm going to go with the ghost swing on this. As I said, I hate anything ghost object related. They're so dumb. They're so lazy. They just get an object and they just add the weakest motor on it so it slightly moves, and they just add creepy laughing. It's so lazy. They just don't want to design an actual like unique character. So overall, it's kind of unfair. So if you don't like want that, for the actual worst, I'm probably going to have to give it to the basement doors. Once again, not like a full life size, but does anyone like remember this? Because like I don't. I barely like remember that it even existed, but I feel like it was just wasted potential once again. The effect didn't really work because you could clearly see that like the hands weren't actually inside the basement. It had lots of potential, which kind of sucked, but overall it just kind of fell flat. But for the best ones, I'll probably give it to Limb Ripper, who returned that year, and also probably Creepy Towering Clown. Those two were just such solid, just overall props. I guess I'll probably give the best to Towering Clown, since, Limb Ripper technically was a return, so that'd be kind of unfair. But I just love how they returned Limb Ripper. It was kind of random, if I'm being honest, but honestly, one of the best returning props, and it was just a very solid prop. But Creepy Towering Clown was just, one of the first clowns we've got in years. I know, like, nowadays, I don't really care too much for him per se, because of how much clowns have infested my brain. But back in the day, I mean, he was, like, monumental. Like, a 7-foot prop was, like, super rare to see. And, like, a 7-foot clown, like, we've never, like, seen anything like that. So, it was definitely super cool for the time. All right, on to the number 9 spot, we have 2015. Once again, in my opinion, kind of a forgettable year. The themes were okay. Like, the back theme was not very good. This is probably the most forgettable theme. I do not remember, like, anything about this theme. The, like, whole subway aesthetic. It was just kind of random. I felt like the placement was kind of weird, but hey, at least they actually had zombies in there, so the prop blending wasn't horrible. And the front theme was actually really cool. I love the whole swamp and how it's kind of separated into, like, different sections. Like, there's kind of the front area, there's, like, the incinerator area, there's, like, the area where Creepy Rising Doll was. A super solid front theme. And I love the whole, like, fog effect at the bottom. Probably one of my favorite themes in the quote-unquote modern era of Spirit. But for the actual props this year, probably the worst, I'm going to give it to Werewolf Rug. I mean, it's literally just like a foot pad, but as an animatronic, so it's really not that good. Also, some of the grave-grabbing corpse, like, we've already seen these. Like, I don't care for these, honestly. They're just so lazy. At least, like, the ones way back in the day had, like, actual good detail. Now they're just, like, cheap plastic zombies. So they're really not that good. I don't really care for the grave grabbers. But for the best props, some really good props were obviously Cerberus. I think that was super cool how he could connect like fog through his mouth. Also smoldering zombie, I loved how he could also fog. But probably the best one, I gotta give it to Moonshine Barrel Zombie, just because it was a scrap 2014 prop, and it pops up really fast. I love the zombie detail, and I don't know, I love him so much. He's just such a cool prop. I guess other cool props this year were the creepy rising doll. But yeah, Moonshine Barrel Zombie was very solid. I probably liked him a lot since he was supposed to be a 2014 prop, and that's the year that I liked better. Overall, I think this year was pretty solid. There wasn't like too much horrible props, but there wasn't really anything that amazing either, in my opinion. But I feel like we're moving on to our number 8 spot, and everything here on out I think is pretty good, and I think it can solidify itself as one of the best years in Spirit's history. So for our number 8 spot, we got 2008. Once again, some of you guys might be surprised how, low this is on the list. But looking back at it, 2008 really didn't have too much to offer. At first, I'm like, oh yeah, there's Chin Up Zombies, Spasm, Jason. But Chin Up and Jason came out in 2007, and I'm not even covering that far back. And Spasm came out in like 2005 or something. So those guys, like, in my opinion, some of the best props of that year didn't even come out that year. But for the actual themes, I think the themes were very solid too. I mean, we had the whole castle entrance area. We've never really seen a castle theme before. I mean, it was just a recycled theme in 2007. But still, it's pretty cool because, we don't really get castle themes anymore. We also had the Dungeon of Horrors area, American Gothic, and also the Chop Shop, which is like kind of a lab area. Overall, I think this year was pretty solid, but also kind of forgettable. Like, I really thought this year was better in my mind. We got some really good props like Hannibal Lecter and stuff, but I feel like that was only like new licensed Gemmy character we got that year. But yeah, I think probably the best prop in that year, in my opinion, was probably Hannibal Lecter, just because I love those like old Gemmy licensed characters. I think some other really good props, the Mad Scientist was pretty cool, and the American Gothic farmers were also very solid. For the worst, I'm probably going to give it to Guardian of the Grave, because I'm pretty sure, like, it's just, like, so average. It's just kind of generic. There's really nothing crazy about it. I didn't really want to count zombie babies, but also a very solid prop this year was Hex, because Hex is probably one of the best zombie babies like we've ever gotten. But I feel like we didn't get really like anything crazy. I guess another kind of okay prop was the Haunted Scarecrow, just kind of a generic scarecrow, really nothing unique there. Alright, so for my number 7 spot, we have, in my opinion, the best, like, modern year spirit, and that was 2021. This year was very, very solid. Honestly, I have, like, very few complaints with this year. Honestly, like, theme blending was okay, but it was better than 2020 and 2019, that's for sure, because it was an actually, scary theme. We got the Halloween Factory. We also got the back theme, which I think was pretty cool. We had the little side theme with Shorty and Sam, which I think was really cool too, that we kind of got a third theme, even though it was really small. But overall, yeah, I mean, this was just a very solid year. For, like, the worst props, I mean, we had, like, the ghost face, which was way too short. We had the Pennywise, and we've just seen way too much Pennywise props. But probably the worst is, I'm probably going to give it to Pennywise, just because it's just all right. Like, there's nothing crazy about it. It's just another Pennywise prop, except it's like half-bodied. So the one from 2019 was just so much better. But for the best props, I mean, this is kind of obvious. I'm obviously gonna give it to Mr. Dark. But some other really good ones. Mr. Howell was super solid. Wackymole came back that year. In online, we had Bloody Bag of Jokes come back. We had Lil Nestor come back. And I guess Grave Wrapping Corpse come back, which was super random, but whatever. Another very solid prop, we got Grimm, as I just mentioned. We had Henry Hustle come out that year. Overall, I feel like just a very solid year. Harvester of Souls came back, which is like one of the only good props from 2020. Overall, I think I can safely give this probably the best modern era of spirit year. This was just a very solid year. I love like the cool like pumpkin carving visual. There's like screens in the back and stuff. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a walkthrough this year, so that kind of sucks, but whatever. But yeah, I don't know, man. This year is just so solid. I really don't. There's no prop this year that like I absolutely hated. Like, I mean, Pennywise and Ghostface were okay, but like they weren't horrible or anything. They weren't like Johnny Punk level or anything. I also thought Evelyn Leach was okay. She had lots of potential, but the head she's holding just looks pretty bad, which kind of sucks. But we also got like Shorty that year, and I think he was just a very good killer clown execution. But yeah, overall, I can safely give 2021 the number 7 spot. So for number 6, we have, in my opinion, kind of the last like old spirit days year, you know what I mean? It's 2014. This year kind of felt like the transition between like the old spirit days into the modern era, because we had like some okay props, but I feel like most of the props this year were very solid. This was the final year Death Row came back. This was the final year Rosemary came back. We had Barnyard Butcher, which is like one of my favorite props of all time. Pumpkin Nester came back. We had like the attic theme with like the evil scientist, electrified maniac, broken spine girl, peekaboo Penny, lunging Lily. This year was honestly very, very solid, and I really don't have too much to gripe with this year, but I feel like just the themes were kind of okay. The ruins were just okay. I feel like the execution wasn't amazing. Some parts just felt way too empty, like the entryway. I feel like there should have been another prop there. The attic was just way too small and just not really that unique of a shape. And then the gas station was kind of forgettable. I don't really remember a lot from it. So I feel like the themes were okay, but the props kind of blended in. I mean, I don't know why there's an evil scientist and like an electrified maniac inside an attic, but whatever. They worked better in the themes than like 2019, so I'll say that. So onto the props. I kind of listed the best props earlier, but obviously I'm going to give this spot to Barnyard Butcher. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. But for the worst props, I'm just going to have to give it to the jumping cat, because it really didn't do anything. It was just another jumping spider clone, except it's a cat now, so that's cool, I guess. Yeah, that's like, I feel like just the jumping cat was just like the only kind of okay prop that year. I mean, none else come to mind that were pretty bad, so I feel like from here now on, there's really not too much bad props per se. All right, we are now into the top 5. And if you're a true Spirit fan or you're just good at math, you can probably see which years we have left. All right, so at our number 5 spot, we have 2009, a super amazing year. We got the woods theme, we got the haunted shack, we had kind of the zombie baby theme. But the props this year were just amazing. We got the Rob Zombie Michael Myers, we got the Executioner, Reaper Souls, Grinning Gertrude, Samantha, Deadlift Zombie. I mean, all these props just absolutely amazing and super cool animation. And I feel like they all fit into the theme super well too. You know, inside the woods, we had like the witches and stuff, and like the haunted shack, we had like just kind of some of the other props. The executioner was in there as well. But yeah, this was just an amazing year for Spirit. I feel like this is really when they just kind of got their head in the game and they just kind of start to know what to do. I don't really have any props this year that were horrible per se. Some of the witches were bad. Probably the worst are like Flying Witch and like Hazel Witch. Probably Hazel Witch is the worst just because that face looks kind of weird. And also I'm just not that big of a fan of witches. But for the best, there's a lot. As I mentioned, we have like the Executioner, Deadlift Zombie. We got Midnight Countess this year, which was a super cool like vampire prop. Reaper Souls. But probably for the best, I'm going to have to give it to Reaper Souls. Just such a cool Reaper prop. Super unique animation. Just super unique character. I just loved his animation so much. It was just so unique for the time. He was pretty big too. And overall, just a very, very solid prop. I think I can safely say he was probably the best that year. On to our number 4 spot. Number 4, we have 2010. What can I even say about this year? We got Cirque du Spirit, we got the Horrorplex Theater, we had the Graveyard theme, we had like Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Pinhead, Uncle Charlie, Bite-Sized Clown, Bone Collector, Demonica, all like such amazing props. Probably for the worst one, I'm gonna give it to Rising of the Grave Zombie, and I would give it to the original Rising from the Grave, but he came out in 2009, so I can't really give it to him. But, you know, just Rising of the Graves really aren't that unique, so that's why I'm just going to give him the worst prop this year. Also, I feel like Resurrection Mary was okay. Like, she had no detailing on her clothes. Her animation was cool, but I feel like she also just broke a lot, so really nothing too amazing. But we have a lot for the best props. We had Uncle Charlie, Bone Collector, Bite-Sized Clown, all the classic Jemmy characters. Probably for like the second best, I'm gonna have to give it probably to the Michael Myers. I love his appearance and his animation. So for the best, I just have to give it to Freddy Krueger. I'm slightly biased because I have Freddy Krueger, not like Michael or Pinhead, so that's kind of why. But also just from a technical standpoint, I mean, I feel like he had the most detail. He had the most motion as well. And I feel like it's just very, very well done. One of just the creepiest props in general, just like the way he moved in his like super just detailed burnt skin. Just very disturbing right there. And I know some people are going to be mad at me for not saying Uncle Charlie was the best. But just, like, from an objective standpoint, Uncle Charlie was not the best. Okay, his, like, mech was just made of absolute trash. He was not very sturdy at all. I mean, this is when SVI kind of started working for Spirit. So it makes sense. But the frame and all of his molds are just all very low quality. I love his idea and stuff, but I don't think I can give him the best of the year. All right, we are now into the top 3. And I'll just say this already. These 3 years are just absolutely amazing. In my opinion, this is like the golden era of Spirit. All 3 of these years, honestly, are basically tied for me. They're all just very, very solid with their themes, how the props went into the themes, the props just in general. So at number 3, we have 2012. What just a fantastic year. We got, we had the haunted house area. we had the farms, we had the tear mill. Honestly, I think the reason why this is number 3, because the haunted house was just a clone of the 2011 haunted house, and also I feel like there weren't as good props in there. Like Poppin' Goblin and Ghost Girl are just okay in my opinion, but I don't think Poppin' Goblin's the worst, even if he is pretty bad quality, just because, we don't really see any goblins, and I think his animation was super unique. Rising Regan and the Witch also, like, weren't, the Witch wasn't the best Jemmy has ever done, and also Rising Regan, I think the Standing Regan was a bit better, probably just because Standing Regan's a bit better quality. But besides that, like, little haunted house theme, I really do not have any cons. And keep in mind, even the haunted house theme is still pretty solid. It's everything in there is better than the 2020 lineup, besides like Harvester of Souls and Miss Mercy, in my opinion. So probably for the worst, I'm going to give it to Ghost Girl. She's just not that scary. I'm pretty sure she breaks fairly easily too. The inflatable technology is cool, but I didn't think I'd be saying this, but honestly, it works better on Mr. Punchy, even if his inflating, like, mech isn't that good. She's just not scary. Her animation's just kind of weird, and it takes too long too. Like, people are just gonna walk past her by the time she does all of her stuff. So for that reason, I think she's probably the worst. I said some other pretty bad ones. I don't know. I feel like Poppin' Goblin's way too overhated. I know in my top 5 worst spirit props, I put him as number 5, but that's just for the quality of him. Even then, I feel like my opinions have slightly changed. But honestly, for the top 3, I'm probably just going to do one bad prop, just because I feel like there is one bad prop. And even then, they're not even that bad. They're just, like, okay. So, yeah, for 2012, there's a lot of contenders to be the best. Here, let's just talk about the themes first. So, I think the Tear Mill's probably the best theme in here. Just, like, the way the, like, water wheel moved and, like, all the fog rolling through. And just how all the props, like, fit in perfectly. Like, there's kind of a slaughterhouse area where, there's a old prop called Buzzsaw, not the 2021 Buzzsaw, but 2012 Buzzsaw, and there's like another prop, I forgot his name, and there's like Death Row in there. It just all worked perfectly. And like there's all the zombie babies there. I think the front theme might also be my favorite, but I'm gonna stick to Tear Mill as the best. But front theme had all the werewolves, it had menograms, it had the Harvester, Zombie Swing Girl, even though technically Harvester was returning that year, so I can't really count him. And it had kind of all like the tombstone props too. That's kind of also another small complaint. The tombstone props didn't fit in perfectly, but as I said, they fit in better than kind of the modern years, so I'll let that slide. But for the best prop, I'm gonna have to give it to Wolf Spitter. I mean, it's just such a cool mech. The leg is detailed, him himself is detailed. The only problem with him is that, once again, he's pretty faulty, so that sucks. But I'm still putting him as the best that year. Other contenders, I think Menograms is super cool as well. Limb Ripper came out that year. I thought he was also amazing. Death Row also. Death Row is probably the second best, honestly. Just such a simple prop, yet works so well. Probably one of Spirit's most recognizable props. So I think I can safely put 2012 at number 3. But once again, all 3 of these are almost tied for me. So I like basically all of them equally. So at number 2, we have 2013. This is most people's favorite year, and that's definitely understandable. I mean, we got Pumpkin Nester that year. We had the Clown Train. We had the Asylum theme with, like, convulsing nurse and stuff. And probably one of, like, the years that, like, really got me into Spirit. Just how amazing everything was. I loved every part of it. So I guess for the worst props, I actually do have a couple that come to mind. 2 butlers are just okay. Like they're just butlers. They're nothing crazy. But probably the mini ones are the worst because I don't know why Spirit made a tall version and a mini one the same year. I guess that's what they did with young Crouchy, but so I guess he's the young Crouchy that year. I think his name's like Mini Skeeves the Butler or something. I don't remember, if I'm being honest. We also got a bunch of jumping props that year, which was, I think it was a bit much. I mean, the jumping bug was cool just because of how big he was. The striking, or I think it's called like striking snake, was also pretty fast. So they get the job done. The jumping dog was also a bit redundant. They just made a bit too much jumping props that year. Like, I feel like everyone in the Spirit fandom, if they did that like nowadays, everyone would be kind of mad. If they just had like 3 Mr. Darks in like a whole year, it would definitely be a bit much. But it makes sense since, the jumping spire was so popular. But anyways, on to the themes. It's hard, but I think I'm going to have to say Asylum was probably the best that year. It's definitely between Asylum and Clown Train. The Haunted Mansion was definitely good. Kind of gave off like Disney's Haunted Mansion vibes with like the wallpaper and stuff. It had Pumpkin Nester and like the like granny and the zombie granny in the rocking chair, which I thought was super cool too. But I feel like Clown Train and Asylum just came together a bit better. But I think I'm just going to have to give it to Asylum since it was a bit more detailed. But, I mean, Clown Train's really the only clown theme we've ever gotten. I mean, we had Cirky Do Spirit, but that was more of like a circus theme with, like, not all clowns in there. But on to the topic of Clown Train. Every single prop in there is just amazing. Actually, I kind of want, like, a goal to get every single Clown Train prop because I guess if you include 2021 Wackymole, since I got him, I have every Clown Train prop except for Thrashing Clown with TNT and the Clown Mirror. Although I don't really count the Clown Mirror because, let's be honest, that's probably also one of the worst props this year. It's just not that good of a magic mirror. In general, I don't really even like magic mirrors, but that's besides the point. But probably for the best prop of this year, I'm going to have to give it to Silent and Deadly. And I don't even care for clowns that much, but just his execution was perfect. This is what, like, all clowns should be modeled after. Like, him and Wackymole, they should either be, like, silent and creepy, like, kind of what Silent and Deadly is, or just, like, kind of literally gone crazy, like what Wackymole did. But I just love the detail on his face. Like, you can see, like, where the makeup fades and, like, his normal skin, like, is on the back of his head. I think that's just such a great touch because nowadays all clowns are just, like, monster clowns. And I personally like more of, like, the uncanny vintage clowns. I feel like those are more creepy than, like, like creepy towering clown is, if you know what I mean. But onto the Asylum theme, another prop that could definitely be one of the best is Convulsing Nurse. Just such a terrifying and creepy prop. Its motion, like, isn't anything crazy, but it just works so well. It's just so creepy. Cemetery Angel also super cool. He's one of my personal favorites. But overall, I think the Asylum just worked really well. I loved all the cages they were in and all the detail. And it's really like the only Asylum theme we've ever gotten. Hopefully we get like an Asylum theme in 2023 because that would be pretty cool because it's just such a cool theme and it's really creepy. And honestly, you can just do a lot with it. But, 2013 in the year at the number 1 spot definitely basically ties for number 1 for me because they're just both such solid years, but I think I might like this number 1 spot slightly better. And if you've been paying attention, the number 1 spot is 2011. So as you can see, clearly the golden age from Spirit, all in the top 5 was 2009 to 2011. I guess number 6 was 2014 too, so 2009 to 2014. But what's there even to say about 2011? This was the first year we got Jumping Spider. First year we got Rosemary Zombie Girl. First year we got the Harvester. We got the Ghostface this year. We got the Regan this year. We got the Frankenstein. And in my opinion, we got the best theme ever, which is Zombie Wasteland. We got Twilight Twitcher. We got Flesh Eating Zombie. Demonica came back too. There's just so many good things to say about this year. And I would say the worst this year is Guarding the Grave, but that's a 10 prop, so I can't even count that. I've literally been looking for the worst props to put as the worst that actually came out this year besides tabletops and zombie babies. And honestly, I can't find any. So that's why I'm giving this the number 1 spot, because if I'm being completely honest, all props this year were just executed so well. I think let me just talk about all the themes. So the themes we got this year, we had the vampire mausoleum, we had the zombie baby theme, we had the House of Horrors theme, and we also had zombie wasteland. The House of Horrors admittedly is a bit generic, but also I feel like it's the first haunted house theme we got. 2012 just did it again, except now as well. So 2011 House of Horrors was super solid because we got the Ghostface, we got the Regan in there, we got the Frankenstein. It was just so well done. We also had the zombie baby themes that year, so we had the zombie baby scary swings, and the swings actually moved around, which was super cool. The vampire mausoleum was also amazing because we got vampire props, and we don't get those anymore. So we got the lurching vampire, and personally my favorite was probably the vampire in the coffin. It was just such a cool prop because you got the coffin too, and it rised out of the coffin. And it was kind of a graveyard theme, but also had vampires and stuff. It was just so well done. But also Zombie Wasteland, in my opinion, is probably the best theme because it had super interactive elements, kind of the lab. There's a slime waterfall and it actually moved. But unlike the lab, everything actually fit in there perfectly. Honestly, I'd give 2022 way higher spot for the theme because if it the props in there actually fit. But the great thing about 2011, literally every prop fits in their theme. I don't think there's any horrible props. I mean, there's some static props, but even they have a good amount of detail. Zombie bait was super well done. Once again, this was the first year we got Rosemary, we got the Harvester. Just so many countless amazing qualities to this year. Yeah, the Vampire Mausoleum was kind of a cemetery, but also it was vampire themed. So we had the Gatekeeper, we had some of the tombstone props, the Creepy Caretaker, Gravedigger, which used to be one of my favorite props. He's just a very cool prop. We never really got any Gravediggers, so that's pretty cool. I said this is the first year we got Jumping Spider 2. We got John Doe. Just such all amazing props and just one Vampire Mausoleum theme. And then if we look inside the Zombie Wasteland theme, we had Eaten Alive. I didn't even mention him. He's amazing too. Just how disturbing he is. Demonica, although Demonica was returning this year, so I can't really count her. Flushing Zombie, once again. Twilight Twitcher, Zombie Bait. First year we got Rosemary too. It's gonna be hard to say which prop is the best. And to be fair, this is slightly biased, but I'm gonna have to go with Twilight Twitcher on this one, just because I own him. So to be fair, I am slightly biased, but if we want to look at it objectively, the best might be Eaten Alive or maybe Rosemary. just because there's such creepy props with like such cool motion too, and like very detailed as well. And overall, that's 2011, just such an amazing year. I honestly don't have any bad props this year because I can't really find any. Obviously, I'm not including like zombie babies or tabletops or anything. I guess maybe if we did have to do one, maybe the gatekeeper. But even then, he just adds to the, ambiance just so much. Just his presence can just like, if you're trying to do graveyard theme, he just works so well in there. And I can't say like lurching vampires bad since we don't get any vampires anymore. So overall, that's 2011. Just once again, a fantastic year. And overall, that is my list. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to like, subscribe, share, and of course, goodbye everyone.